book nerds, welcome to my channel. So if you saw my last video, that was me reacting to my best books of 2018 video, and this will be me reacting to my worst books of 2018 video. I am filming directly after that one, as I'm sure you can tell. I don't know why I didn't just make it one video, but I decided to make it two, so here we go. And I'm just gonna start. Got my big old chunky headphones on again. I am wearing the same outfit I wore in the last video. I clearly filmed back to back there as well. So let's go.
List of the worst books of 2018, not in any order, just 5 books that I really
yeah,
hated.
I'll combine this with the most disappointing actually, because then that's like all the books I hated.
Books of 2018, so that's also
I forgot this list was only 5
that I really didn't like, but that's going to be one specifically that I had high expectations for that I really didn't like, whereas this is just books that I maybe didn't expect a lot from, but they still didn't deliver. Going to be mostly spoiler free. There's going to be some sections where I have to spoil stuff, but I will warn you beforehand, and I'll let you know when it's safe not to carry on watching. So anyway, first book is Survive the Night by Danielle Vega. This sounds so weird and eclectic.
Oh my god, I forgot I didn't forget I read that, but yeah, Survive the Night is bad. Gosh, let's see what I say about it.
It is so beautiful that even though I'd heard so many reviews saying it was awful, I had to try it. Unfortunately, I should have just not, because it's really bad. This is about a group of teenagers who go to this nightclub event, which is called Survive the Night, and the idea is that you get locked in and you have to stay partying until morning, but their best friend ends up getting murdered during this night, and they still stay locked in. And then weird stuff starts happening. So the main problem with this is it is paranormal, which I wasn't sure if it was or not, and I'm not a massive fan of paranormal type horror unless it's done in a particular way. It's also just really bad. It's just really hard to follow. The writing is very muddy, and what's actually going on is very muddy, and not in a good, ambiguous way, just in a kind of
muddy. I like that word, muddy.
Yeah, it was really short, and it still felt like a drag for me. I would definitely not recommend this. And yet, I still kind of want to read the other book by this author, which has similarly gotten bad reviews, and I know I'm going to hate.
I've not read it. I think I took it off my TBR. I think it's gone now.
Like, you read a bunch of people in a nightclub and they get locked in, and the bad things start happening, and you wonder how that could possibly go wrong. But just take my word for it; it's definitely not worth reading. Yeah, it's really bad. The next one I'm going to talk about really briefly, because I read it at the start of the year and I essentially remember nothing about it. But this is The Death Cure by James Dashner, and this is the third and was originally the final book in the Maze Runner.
Oh my god, I finished the Maze Runner series then. That was way back at the start of 2018. Yeah, like I said, I don't even register that I read those books. Why was it so bad?
Trilogy, and they added a new one, which I have not read, and I think there's a couple more as well, which I'm not going to read. But all I remember of this book is that it was a horrible end to the series. The first book of The Maze Runner is the best in the series, and even that's not great. I think I get like 3.5, and they just get progressively worse.
You're just throwing shade on the Maze Runner series.
Absolutely assassinated the female
hottest take
character,
2018.
So she just stopped acting like she'd ever acted before, and she turned into a plot device which I hate, and that was among a lot of boring elements. There's a lot of confusing elements. For example, I still remember what the first book is about. I still remember what the second book is about vaguely. I have absolutely no idea what happened in the third book.
That still sounds true. I remember the first and second book, not the third.
Quick thing I forgot to mention at the start, by the way. These aren't necessarily, in case you didn't watch my favourite videos, these aren't necessarily the books that I rated the lowest of the year, although they are pretty much all 1 or 2 stars, but they are the books that I actively hated. So these are books that I remember disliking, that I remember making me angry that I was reading them. And yeah, that's basically my criteria for this, just so you're aware. Which brings me to my next book, which is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I absolutely hate.
Oh boy, Ready Player One. Okay, if you've not read my Ready Player One review, I'm sure I'm about to say it in this video, but it's literally like over 1,000 words. It's the longest review I've ever written, and there is just so much hatred in it. And yeah, I did not know that was that year either.
I hate this book. I read it with my partner, and we read it at the same time, and it's just so bad. I'll add, because I'm going to do a whole video on this, so I'll go into more detail about it when I get around to doing it. But I will link my blog post.
I don't think I ever did that video.
2,000 words on it or something stupid like that about how much I hate this book. But effectively, I think the second half is actually not that bad, and I think by the ending, they had the makings of a good story. It's just that it's full of so much rubbish to get to that point that I couldn't rate it higher. Then I think I rated it 2 stars, maybe 2.5 stars, and that's what I mean about them not being the lowest books. But I still hate this book so much. Reasons I hate it in a very, very short list. Main character really does not stand the test of time. There's a lot of creepy, nice nerd guy elements to this character that I really did not gel well with me. Stupid amount of references, not clever references, just clumsy shoehorned in. 90% of the plot is just referencing other stuff, and that's not a good story. There's just so many things I hated. I'm just going to link the blog post down below, you can read it if you want, and like I said, I will be filming a video on it shortly. It might not go up till February based on my uploading schedule, but I'll be doing a rant video about it.
It might not go up ever.
If you want to hear about that. So the next book, I unfortunately don't remember too much detail about why I hated it again, but it's The Liar's Chair by Rebecca Whitney. This is a thriller.
Liar's Chair.
And it sounds alright.
Liar's Chair. I remember that I read it. I don't remember it being, it was bad. I don't remember it being, like, worth talking about bad, but let's see what I say.
About that, but it kind of implies it's going to be more of a domestic thriller, and it's not. There's like a weird gang guy who gets
Oh
involved.
yeah,
and
that's like a
there's lot
mob
of
guy.
weird elements. There's a lot of people not acting the way people should act. I'm pretty sure I gave that 1 star out of 5, which is low for me, particularly for thrillers. I often don't give 1
It
star
used to be
reviews.
low for me, it's
This
not
review,
anymore.
this video pretty much contains all of the 1 stars I gave for the year. Gives you an indication of how little I do it, even for books I hated. Like, absolutely hated Ready Player One, still 2.5 stars, because there are elements that I can appreciate are good. But for it to get a 1 star, it literally has to be, there is nothing of worth gained from reading it. And which brings me to my next book, which is another appalling thriller. And this is All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda. This is, again, it's
Interesting. All the Missing Girls. Okay, I know this book is bad, and I'm sure it's definitely 1 star bad. Looking back on it, did it deserve as much hate as I gave it? I don't know. She's actually a really good author. Like at the time of filming that, it was the only book I'd read by her. But I've read a lot of her stuff since, and I've really enjoyed it. So I don't know if it was just like, now I know how it's formatted, because it's formatted in a really weird way. I might be more into it, but I'm not going to reread it because it's just not worth it.
sounds really interesting. And it is about a woman who, when she was a teenager, her best friend went missing, and that thing was never solved. They never found out, police never found out what happened to her best friend. And she moves back to her
That
hometown,
thing
or
was
goes back
never
visiting to
solved.
her hometown, and another girl goes missing in the same way. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that it's told backwards. So you start at the end of the story and then work your way to the start of the story, which sounds like it's going to be a really interesting thing to read in concept. But in its execution, it's just really full of plot holes, and it's not great because you kind of have to concentrate. Like, I kept forgetting that it wasn't being told in chronological order, which meant in my
It's
head,
not great because you have to
was like-
concentrate. I've
I
always
feel
been
like
that
it was
lazy.
just the way that you're naturally programmed to read stories that you expect events to happen afterwards. So then I'd be reading something and I'd be like, oh wait, that actually happened before. But it wasn't told, like, I love the movie Memento, but it wasn't told in a way that you could easily be like, okay, so this is what happened before that event. And I swear there was at one point where a character woke up with someone and then it was like a couple of chapters before they actually went to bed together. I just remember there's something about that scene that didn't read right to me when I read it the first time, and again, maybe it was just me not paying proper attention, but you shouldn't have to work that hard for a story this average.
You shouldn't have
this
to
is the one
work
I'm gonna
hard
spoil.
for a
So I'm gonna put my
story.
hand up, and
I
when
know
hand
that's
it
not
down,
how I
let's see
meant
if
it,
you can
but
do with the
I
video.
love the level of
So
laziness
it
here.
turns out I can't count, and there wasn't 5, there was actually 6. The final book I've already talked about on the channel, and that is Method 15 out of 33 by Shannon.
Oh my god,
I always
there's actually
remember
6
this one.
books because I can't
it's got a really
count.
stupid title, but
And I
this
completely
one is a
forgot
thriller, and
there were
it's about a
6.
pregnant teenager who
But
gets
yeah,
kidnapped
let's just keep
because
going.
people want to sell her baby.
This
and
list is
she's
mostly
trying to escape,
thrillers.
and the whole thing is just really dull and badly written. The teenage girl is written exactly the same
Okay,
as the FBI
yeah,
agent.
so that was my worst list. Yeah, I mean, Method, I still remember that Method 15 out of 33, whatever the hell it's called. That is definitely bad. That deserves to be at the top. I'm going to do my disappointed ones now, and hopefully it won't make this video too long.
It's a surprising best list.
It is literally just an extension of the worst
effectively.
list.
But yeah, so this is like the lowest rated books that I read this year that I expected to really like, for various reasons. So, and I mentioned this in my favourites list, but this is not going to be a round number, unfortunately, because I tried to make 10, didn't work. I tried to make it down to 5, didn't want to do. The book I'm going to talk about was a big one this year. I think it's actually made the Goodreads Top Thrillers of 2018 list, and this is The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn. I was so
The
torn on
One
this
in the
book, and
Window, that's a throwback.
I did rate it like 2.5 in the end, I believe, because it's got fantastic writing. I would love to read
To
more
be fair,
of
I
this,
do
but
remember why I disliked this book,
kind of
so
engaging,
it clearly was bad enough
certainly
to
the
stick
start,
in my memory.
But unfortunately, there were just so many elements that I disliked that ultimately it was really disappointing for me. It was one of the first thrillers I read this year as well, and so the first reason I didn't like this is it's too long. It's like 400 something pages, which is a bit long for a thriller, and I don't think it had enough in it to justify its length, so it dragged a little bit for me. The second reason I didn't like it is I felt like one of the twists was really obvious, so I'm going to spoil it now. I'm going to put my hand up. When my hand goes down, it's safe to continue watching if you don't want this to spoil for you, so my hand is up. I'm going to put my hand down now. But yeah, so Woman in the Window is a really bad example of a thriller for me, and I'm kind of slightly annoyed that...
God, how
not
long am I
annoyed,
going to
but
rant
wish
about
that
this
it wasn't
book?
as raved and talked about as it was, because there's so much better thrillers out there. The next book I'm going to talk about is another one that I think a lot of people love. This is The Wicker King by A. Ankrum. I really wanted to read this
The
because
Wicker
it's about
King.
2 teenage boys, and one of them has vivid
That was just really
hallucinations
dull,
in
if I
the fictional world,
remember.
and the other one is kind of in love with the guy who has the vivid hallucinations. Having said that, a lot of people do enjoy this book, so if you do enjoy that type of writing and the plot sounds like it appeals to you, you might have a better time with it than I did, but I just thought it was really dull.
I was so scared of hating on that
wasted
book,
my
like,
interesting concept.
genuinely.
The next book I'll talk about is Beasts Made of Night by Tochi Onyuchi.
Beast Made in
I really,
Night.
really wanted to like this book. I read it during the Fall into Fantasy readathon, and I read
Oh,
two
that was
amazing
heartbreaking. I
fantasies
did
before it,
really
Forest
wanna
Made-
love
Forest
that
of Dazzle
book.
Mountains and Girls Made of Paper and Fire. But this one was just so dull. I honestly almost stopped reading it about 5 times, and I've read the Goodreeds reviews since, and a lot of people just stopped reading it because it's not greatly written. The main character isn't
Wait, I
interesting.
finished that book? I don't
Basic
even
concept
remember
sounds like
finishing
doesn't
it.
do anything with
Damn.
Should probably talk about what the basic concept actually is. So the main character was just really flat. He had one personality characteristic, which was to talk about his
I
hair.
forgot he used to
And
just talk about his hair
it was just
all
really
the
boring, and
time.
unfortunately, because it's Nigerian inspired and it sounded really cool and it's got diversity in it, but I just couldn't get into it at all, and I would not recommend it on any level, unfortunately. The next book I'm going to talk about is All of This Is True.
I read All of This Is True in 2018. Damn. You know what? I vaguely remember this book, but I found it in a charity shop and I was like, it looks so cool. And I was like, no, you've read this book. You remember it being awful. Yeah.
Again, might have mispronounced that. I'm very sorry if I have. This sounds really cool. So cool that even though I'd heard bad things
I love how I
about it,
keep
it was
justifying
worth
that these
checking it out.
books sounded
So this is
cool, as if
about
that's not
group
the
of
exact
teenagers
reason
who
they're on
meet
the
an author,
disappointed list.
and then something happens that we don't know what it is, and then that
Oh
author
my god, I just
tells their
noticed
life
I've
story
labelled
and
it
it's
controversial
told in three
opinions
ways, so you
ahead.
get
So
the actual
clickbaity.
characters
I had like 3
telling their
viewers
story.
at the
You get,
time.
extracts from the book that the author has written, and then you get, I'm not even sure, I can't even remember what the third thing is. I know there's like 3 ways that the story is told. The problem is that it's the same story, so unfortunately, unlike, say, if this story by the author revealed elements that weren't being told by the main characters, that would be interesting. But instead you get the exact same elements told again, and then again, and then again. And it's just so boring, it's really long, doesn't deserve to be called a thriller because there's basically nothing interesting that happens in this. There was one good plot twist, and that was an interesting concept. Next book I'm going to talk about is First We Were Four by Alex.
First We Were Four. Yeah, people loved that book as well. I remember that, and I just found it really confusing. I think this is the time where I was reading a lot of stuff that I heard about that I expected to like and didn't. Whereas now my reading's a lot more homogenous, which is both a good and bad thing. But I tend to read less things that disappoint me in the same way.
Sorori, definitely pronounced that wrong. This is a young adult thriller, and it's about a group of teenagers who, there's like this rock that they use to play around or something, and then a dead body gets found on that rock, and they kind of start their own cult. I don't really remember any details beyond that. There's like some weird romance stuff that happens, but it has the same problem with The Wicker King, where it's told in this really weird writing style that I dislike, where it's very poetic but nothing actually happens in it. And the characters were similarly, and I've got a lot by this author on my TBR that I'm now unsure about reading because it will core elements of the writing style that I dislike, and I feel like that's going to be a consistent thing.
Still not read anything else by this
But
author.
yeah, it just didn't live up to the cool sounding story, and I find it really hard to connect with the characters. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor. This came out in January. It was kind of talked about for a bit and then kind of slid off the radar. And it's not hard to
Chalk
see
Man.
why.
I didn't even
This
hate
is
that
a
book,
thriller,
but it
and
was
it's about
just
a-
kind of meh.
I don't know if, I think it happens again in the present day as well, because I know it's set in the past and the present vaguely, I believe. My main issue with this, it's not badly written at all, and it's a decent story, but it steals or takes inspiration from Stephen King's It so much that it was really distracting to read. Like, it's about a group of boys, and there's like 5 of them, and then there's one girl, and she's a redhead, and she's beautiful, and all the boys are in love with her, and all the boys have the same personality stereotypes as in Stephen King's It, but they're all
God,
much
I was so
flatter
afraid
and
of
less
offending
engaging.
people back then.
And again,
Like,
the ending,
I'm still pretty
kind of see it
diplomatic,
coming,
but
doesn't really, it does make
I just started
more sense
YouTube
for
and I
some
thought for
reason,
some reason that
but it
everyone
wasn't
was
very
going to come
satisfactory.
for me.
It
And
was a shame, 'cause it sounded
even though I
really
had
well,
like no
it sounded
viewers,
like
like I
a
said, but I
yeah,
was
it's
just
just-
so scared
if you read
of
Stephen King's
people.
It, you
I was
might
just-
as well
I
read
just didn't
Chalk
wanna
Man
give
over
opinions
Plots
on
because
anything.
It's just got the same spirit, and everything's a little bit too similar. And the final book I want to talk about I actually have in physical form, and it is The Creeper Man by Dawn Kutich. This is called
The Creeper
And Then
Man.
the Trees Cracked in America, I believe, but I've got the British version. This looks, I mean, that cover alone is fantastic, and the description is great. It's just really short. I'm just going to read it quickly. There's a man in the trees, a man with no eyes, but still he watches. That's the surprise. Stay away from the woods, it couldn't be clearer. The trees are creeping nearer and nearer. Beware the Creeper Man. It sounds great. It's a horror, my favourite genre, pretty much. And inside is so disappointing. It's just
Is horror my
I
favourite
can see why it
genre?
was changed to. And then the trees.
It's a bit
crackling. It's not about the
controversial
Creeper Man
there.
at all. It is about the trees. And the ending is actually pretty interesting as a story, but the whole book is really confusing. It's told in a dreamy way. Scenes just happen and they're not remarked upon. Things jump around a bit.
Okay, so clearly, I'm going to stop at that. Clearly, the theme of 2008, 2018 was that I was just confused by every book I read. I know it's not how I meant it, but I sound like an idiot when I watch this video. I just sound lazy as well. Like, I'm talking about books being too long, which I still do. I still dislike books that are like over 400 pages just for their length, and obviously there's books over that I love, but I'm still get like grumpy about reading them. But I just love that I'm like, oh, I was confused by this, confused by that. Like I said, I think the main thing is that with these disappointing books, and now that when I'm disappointed in a book, it's for very different reasons. These I tended to be disappointed in because I'd heard people say they were great, whereas with the present ones it tends to be because I thought they would be great, and I kind of thought those ones would be great too, but looking back, they were much, I can see that why I wouldn't have liked them, and I should have like known the warning signs. But yeah, this video is really fun. Hopefully you enjoyed watching it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, it helps me out massively. Thank Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.